43-year-old literature talking about the 5 millimeter 60 hertz frequency and the detrimental effects it has on the human system, actually not just the human system, on any living system, and it's been completely ignored. So looking at just some of the fundamental aspects of what this energetic system does, what this radio frequency electromagnetic fields do, and they have an impact on all living things, no matter whether it's 1G, 2G, 3G, I won't say beyond that, but regardless of what level it is, it's always had some type of an impact on physiology. But the most recent version of it creates some very noticeable metabolic changes, and these changes have an impact not only on the immune system but also on the cell membrane integrity.
How about the animal and plant kingdom and the environment? How has that been affected?
This is a major problem because when you look at the DNA inside our genes, the four bases of the DNA are exactly the same in every single living species, every one. So if you're doing something which damages humans, it's going to damage every single living plant, every single living animal. And we are now finding that the animals that are most susceptible to this, namely the pollinating insects because of their size and their vibrational frequency, we are now finding that countries that rely on pollinating insects are running short of food. We are finding that animals are becoming sick. In short, we are destroying the entire planet because we are ruining the crops, we're ruining the animals, we are ruining the atmosphere. I cannot think, looking back in history, of a single organisation as the communications industry that is causing and will cause more destruction on this planet and more suffering and more death than all of the world wars there have ever been added up, because it reaches every single country.
There's so many things that we don't even understand yet, how it affects the human system, or whenever I say human system, it's actually affecting all living systems. It's definitely going to affect all life on the planet, because you're talking about a radio frequency electromagnetic field that's going to envelop the entire planet, and it's a global microwave technology. Essentially, it's throwing off the entire magnetic grid of the Earth's essence. The human frequency that the Earth resonates with, you can think of it as the pulse of the planet. It's being disrupted. And now you're talking about other implications that could be not just how it's going to affect life, but what it's going to do to weather patterns, what it's going to do to the morphological structure and the configuration of the planet itself. So you're going to start seeing more natural disasters. You saw the footage with the sloughing off in Norway of 2,000 feet by 500 feet right into the ocean. You're going to start seeing all sorts of landslides like this. You're going to see earthquakes. There's been more earthquakes occurring. You're going to see all sorts of other natural disasters starting to increase because we're disrupting the Earth's magnetic grid.
Is there proof? And it is a very simple answer. The answer is yes. In fact, there is quite a lot of it. In fact, there is an enormous amount of it. The proof really came out with a document I have here. And this particular document was the most top secret document at its time. Realizing that microwaves caused a lot of damage to water-based bodies, the United States Defense Intelligence Agency published this document, which was circulated to all governments, all Western governments. And it says, what we will look at for our safety standard, we will not take the level at which microwaves interact with the cellular processes in the body. And for an adult, there are around 4,500 different biological processes that can be affected, It's 4,050 in a child. They said, we won't look at that level. We will choose a level up here that gives us total freedom. And it is the one used today for all of the cell phones, even the Tetra airwave system. And it is 6 minutes of warming. That's it. The total safety level is 6 minutes of heating. In other words, if you don't feel too warm in 6 minutes, then it's okay. And that's it. And this is why we have all of this trouble. And it is why country after country are now finding they have leukemia clusters, cancer clusters, all sorts of problems going on. But it's this one piece of paper that triggered everything off. The program, after this was put out, it is called, by governments, it is called active denial. In other words, they deny everything. Now, leading up to this, and this takes some believing, to reach this stage, there were lots of experiments on lots of people without their knowledge. In just 40 years, and this is documented, in 40 years, 500,000 people were tested without their knowledge, many to the point of death. They chose military personnel because military personnel are fit, they're active, and they make good case studies. They chose students, psychiatric patients, the poor, children over the age of 4, pregnant women, and of course anybody else that they decided to experiment on. In 1986, at a top secret conference, a US weapons center, a gentleman made a speech, and he said, concerning the microwaves, he said, we can change the behavior of cells, tissue, whole organisms, have a 6 times higher fetus mortality, cause birth defects, and induce cancer in human cells. That is the result of their research. Again, in a top secret course between 2001 and 2007, course number 11, students, these would be scientists, will be familiar with current knowledge. That is, cancer, memory, brain function, damage to the eye, skin, and birth defects can be caused by this radiation. And that is borne out in this document, the one I said is most dangerous, because apart from the top line here, all of the rest of this are illnesses which you can expect to get if you are exposed to radiation. And it says here, exposed to microwave radiation below thermal effects. In other words, below the safety level. And then they list all of the psychiatric problems and all of the physical problems. Some of them they describe as severe neuropathological symptoms. This is a top secret document, biological effects on health hazards, microwave irradiation. They specifically say here this is radio frequency microwave irradiation. And they have, this particular document was 350 pages. Similarly, the Naval Medical Research Institute, a very highly regarded research laboratory service, again United States, they talk about altered menstrual activity for ladies and of fetal development problems. And they say here it is attributed to microwave and radio frequency radiation. There were several top secret studies, 13, and some of them used hundreds and thousands of people. And this one here is the National Security Advisors. And with one of them, they were taken to court. The government were taken to court, and this was MK Ultra, the top secret. Usually, the microwave ones begin with the letters MK. And it says, although the shocking details of medical ethics abuses by the US and Canadian governments were amply detailed, Washington and Canada, citing national security and government privilege, stalled for so long that cases never came to trial. The surviving victims settled for a pittance out of court. In fact, it took 50 years to get that to court, and 50 years is about the standard time that governments try to stall you for. An experiment I know of that was carried out in England, the survivors only reached court a few years ago, that was 50 years on, and only last week, on our news, thalidomide, which again was an experiment for